And joining us now, a man who stays in the fight, the COO of our country, our choice, Colonel Macgregor. Doe, great to have you with us here. I want to first get your assessment where the conflict is right now in Gaza and its implications.
Well, I think we're at the beginning of what could potentially be a regional war. For the moment, Israel is focused primarily on Hamas and annihilating it. And sadly, it sounds like the population of Gazas are with it. And at the same time, they've harnessed us to protect their northern border in the event that Hezbollah attacks. So that far in advance, the Israelis have thought. But in truth, it's growing very rapidly into a regional conflict. The Turkey, the Iranians, all of the Muslim Arab states reaching into North Africa, of course, with Egypt. In fact, I would argue that all the Muslim states from Morocco to Indonesia are upset with what the Israelis are doing in Gaza because they see it as disproportionate and they also see it as collective punishment. And they don't particularly care for that. I think that they're reaching the point where they're willing to take action collectively against Israel.
I don't know that the nations that you just mentioned, the Muslim nations, their militaries don't really add up too much in terms of if the United States is supporting Israel. I want to take that question up with you. Just to what degree is this administration supporting Israel? But against the firepower of just say, the Eisenhower and Gerald Ford carrier strike groups, that's a lot of power, as you well know. I understand that amongst those nations, Turkey has the strongest military.
Well, it's actually more than Turkey. I think we grossly underestimate Iran. Iran has an enormous arsenal of very sophisticated and accurate theater and tactical ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and also unmanned systems or drones. All of their theater, ballistic missiles, have a range about 1,200 miles. This means that all of Israel is literally within the range of their forces. They don't have much of a ground force, but they do have Shiite militias all over Iraq and Syria that are obviously poised to contribute as needed and obviously to attack us. I think Turkey is probably the 500-pound gorilla in the room. They have an enormous army, and within a month and a half, they could put 2 million men into the field. They have a very sizable naval force, over 100 ships. Their submarines and the Israeli submarines are identical. They have German-built diesel-electric submarines that are of very high quality, and they're almost undetectable in shallow water and difficult to find in deep water. They do have cruise missiles, and of course they have quite a fleet of drones. They have one of the largest collection of drones, over 501 fleet of any country in the world. And I think that we should keep in mind that Pakistan has made it very clear that if the Turkey need it, they will provide nuclear warheads to them. It could be used to both deter Israel or strike back at Israel as necessary. I don't think that I would write off the Egyptians. The Egyptians have a large force. They're trying to bring 3 or 4 divisions up to full strength. They want to put probably 200,000 men with equipment on the Egyptian border. And again, General Sisi in Egypt is not interested in a war, but he may not have much choice in the matter because his population is enraged and they want action taken to protect the Arab population of Gaza, which most of the Muslim world sees as being systematically murdered by the Israelis. Whether or not that's true doesn't matter. That's the way they see it. And I think the Saudi, the Emiratis, certainly support in whatever ways that they can. The Jordanians obviously are very much like the Egyptians. They're not interested in a war, but they too may not have much choice because now Palestinians and Jordan actually outnumber Jordanians. We haven't even talked about the West Bank, which will probably erupt in a revolt against Israel. And then, of course, Syria and Hezbollah. Hezbollah has 140,000 roughly missiles and rockets, of which about 40,000 are top of the line and actually quite accurate. They could probably destroy the city of Haifa and certainly could destroy any Israeli bases in the northern part of Israel. And then you have the air defense systems. And while the air forces aren't impressive, the air defense systems are Russian. The S-400 operates across Syria and Lebanon. That could easily be put into operation, and that would shoot many of our aircraft down. Then you have the S-300, which would also contribute to the air defense network. And I think we need to understand there are about 90 aircraft on each of the carriers. And all 90 aircraft are not fighters that are designed to deliver ordnance on each one, perhaps 40 or 50, are designed for that purpose. And when you look at the sortie rate, that is the number of aircraft they can launch and then recover. You're talking between the two carriers, perhaps 20 or 30 aircraft at a time. I don't know precisely where the carrier groups are located, by, I suspect, quite a distance from Israel. Because as you sail into the eastern Mediterranean, you're vulnerable to all sorts of systems from the Turkey, the Syrians, the Lebanese, the Hezbollah. And as a result, that means that you've got to fly a long distance, deliver your ordnance, turn around and come back. And we're not postured to refuel them, which means that many of them could have to land in Israel to refuel. Landing in Israel, which is probably going to end up living under an almost constant rain of rockets and missiles, could be problematic. Then, of course, you have cruise missiles that could be launched, Tomahawks, and they're going to have an impact. There's no question about it. But many of those can be shot down. Those are not very fast. They're not hard to target. They're not hard to shoot down. And those air defense systems that I mentioned have shot them down previously. So I think that we overestimate the impact of the naval power. Now, I don't know what Air Force contribution there will be. I know we've moved some B-52s to the region. Where they are and how they could be used is a question I can't answer. Each B-52 can drop 9,500-pound bombs. If you change the load to have more accurate munitions, say 2,000-pound bombs, they'll carry fewer, but they'll be accurate. But then again, the B-52s can also be shot down. I don't know about the plan to use B-1 or B-2 bombers. And then finally, you have the air forces that are stationed in the region, U.S. Air Forces. They're vulnerable. They're on airfields that are not well protected from an air defense standpoint, which is why we're sending over air defense battalions as we speak right now. How many of them are available and how they would be used, I don't know. But most of them are designed to protect the forces that we have in Iraq and Syria. We have about 1,000 men up in the northeast corner of Syria, and they're in a very vulnerable position. Lou, a friend of mine in the building, I'm talking about the Pentagon, said, though they're in a position much like Wake Island in 1942. They're too far away. We can't get to them quickly, and they could easily be overrun. Now, who will do the overrunning? Will that be Shiite militias? Will it be Turkish forces? If the Turkey actually intervene directly, and I think they will, I don't know. And then, of course, in Iraq, we have some forces as well as in the Gulf region. All of those are within range of various Iranian weapon systems. So, I think we have to be very careful. What we don't have, that we actually need, is an army. The United States Army is about 450,000. And most of the punch in the U.S. Army, that's your mobile armed forces sitting in Poland, Lithuania, and down in Romania. we're not going to be able to move them at all. If we do, it'll take us a long time to get them somewhere, and we're not going to be able to move the munitions that go with them. That includes artillery and tanks. So we're reliant almost exclusively on air and naval power. And to be frank, Lewis, I don't think the people ashore are all that concerned about those carrier battle groups. They have never had a sustained impact. They look powerful, they sound powerful, but when it comes to sustained impact on the ground, on land, not really. So I think it's a dangerously slender thread from which to suspend U.S. national strategic interests. Frankly, I think we're overwhelmed. This is not 1991. We don't have the forces we had in 91. We live in a very different environment. And all of the Arab states have changed. Technology has changed. There are many things they can do now that they could not do 50 years ago. They have populations that are actually much better educated, that could master technologies that they couldn't master 50 years ago. So I think the Israelis are in a very difficult position.